The crowd cheered and broke into a chant of "Bring out the wolf!" Half a dozen card soldiers appeared with Canis in their midst. He towered over them, but he had swords, and Canis did not look as if he was going to put up a fight. The guards pushed him up to the second tower, and the ace of spades wrapped a noose around his thick, hairy neck. "I'd like to speak to my friend," Granny said. She pushed her way to the tower and climbed the stairs. "You'll be up there yourself soon," someone shouted from the crowd. Sabrina watched her grandmother talk to Canis. She couldn't hear what she was saying, but it was obvious to her that Granny was begging him to break free and escape. He shook his head and spoke to her softly. "What is she doing?" a voice said from behind them. Sabrina turned and found Snow White. "I think she's trying to convince him to make a run for it and kill anyone who gets in his way," Uncle Jake said. "He doesn't seem to be listening," Snow said. "That's because he's smart," another voice said. This one belonged to Bluebeard, who was standing uncomfortably close to the beautiful teacher. Personally, I think he's welcoming the opportunity to end his suffering. He's committed so many atrocities, it must be hard on his soul. "You would know," Snow said. Bluebeard's face turned crimson, but he calmed himself and even laughed. "Indeed." Sabrina couldn't stand to be near him any longer. She snatched her sister's hand, and together they climbed the tower to Granny and Canis. "Girls, it's not safe," the old woman said. "I need to say goodbye," Sabrina said. "Me too," Daphne added. "I have been very rude to you. I have never treated you with the respect you deserve," Sabrina said to Canis. As she turned to her sister, "It's a problem I have. I seem to treat everyone badly." "You are young, Sabrina Grimm," Canis said. "Time will supply you with wisdom." "I'm sorry I will not be around to see how you use it." Daphne clung to Canis and hugged him tightly. "Goodbye, Tobias Clay." Canis looked confused. "That was your name before. You were a man once, free of the monster," Sabrina said. Canis shook his head. "A man? Is that true? I don't remember anything before the incident. Did I have a wife? Children? Who was I?" "We don't know," Sabrina said. Mr. Canis seemed shocked. "If only I had known this." "Get your children down now!" Hart bellowed through a megaphone. Granny said a final goodbye and ushered the girls down the steps. They were only halfway down when Hart began shouting again. "Does the prisoner have any final words?" Canis looked out at the crowd and laughed. "What's so funny, mongrel?" Hart shouted. "Look at all the monsters," he said. Hart snarled and pulled a lever. The floor beneath Canis slid open, and his body fell like a stone. Sabrina knew that looking would haunt her for the rest of her life, but she couldn't help herself. But Canis was not swinging from the end of the rope. In fact, he had landed on his feet on the ground. The rope was sliced in two, and a red quilled arrow was buried in the ground behind the platform. The crowd gasped and turned their attention away from the gallows. There, standing across the street, was Robin Hood, no longer in his suit and tie, but in a green shirt and brown tights. He was holding a bow with a second arrow trained on Mayor Hart. Little John stood next to him with a long wooden staff. Will Scarlet, Friar Tuck, and the rest of the merry men stood behind them. "We're back," Little John bellowed with a grin. "Did you miss us?" Robin Hood waved to the crowd. "For those of you wondering, the Sherwood Group is officially closed for business. Don't worry about us, we'll find other jobs. You know what they say, Do what you love and the money will come. I look forward to robbing all of you in the very near future. That guy is so cool, Puck said. Nottingham pulled his sword. I'll kill you, Robin. This time I'll make sure of it. He dashed into the crowd, pushing and shoving in his eagerness to get to Robin. The merry men rushed into the crowd as well, turning it into an enormous mob. Everyone was fighting. Members of the Scarlet Hand even fought one another. Uncle Jake pulled Briar to safety. Then he found Granny and the girls and did the same. Puck, however, flew over the crowd, smacking the tops of people's heads with his wooden sword. We have to get out of here, Uncle Jake said, reaching into his pockets to arm himself with magical items. What about Mr. Canis? Daphne asked. Sabrina could see the huge man tossing people aside and roaring. I think he's okay. Are we all here? Granny asked. Sabrina scanned the crowd. Where's Miss White? In the chaos, it was obvious that even a trained self-defense teacher like Snow could be seriously injured. Sabrina shouted at Puck, Hey, Dirtface, find Snow White! Puck nodded and zipped away. A moment later, he was back. I found her. She's in trouble. Follow me. The family raced after the flying boy. He took them a block away and down an alley. There they found Miss White being dragged away by Bluebeard. Leave her alone! Daphne shouted as they approached. Bluebeard sneered. You people run along. Snow and I are going to have a little talk about manners. Snow punched him in the face and he fell backward, but he sprang back to his feet almost immediately. He wrapped his arm around her neck and pulled a dagger from his pocket. He ran the tip along Snow's throat. Stand back, folks. Let's not get excited. I'd hate for someone to lose their head. Bluebeard said, Snow and I need to come to an understanding. I'm a patient man, but my patience has worn thin. I asked you out for a date and you rejected me. Do you know how that hurts? You disgust me, Snow cried. See what I mean? That's just rude. I'm a very nice man, a pure gentleman who wanted to take you out for dinner. And this is how you treat me. Sabrina heard someone running toward them. She spun around to find Charming approaching from the main street. Billy, Snow cried. Charming, Bluebeard said. Have they captured the wolf yet? No, not yet, Charming said. I was just having a conversation with Snow about how to respect each other. How to respect other people, Bluebeard said. I see. How's it going? Not well. I wanted to give your ex a chance to redeem herself. She's no friend of the hand. What with her relationship with these lousy Grimms? I had hoped that if she would get involved with me, it might save her life when the master rises. It's hopeless, Charming said. I've tried. Billy, what are you saying? Snow cried. Charming approached them and stared Snow hard in the face. You've got yourself into another situation, Snow. William, you don't mind if I have a little fun with her? Bluebeard asked. If you're done with her like you say you are, then you won't mind. Charming was still, then he nodded. He turned to walk back to the right when a flash, there was a sword in his hand. He whipped around and plunged it into Bluebeard's side. The villain collapsed with the blade still in him. Snow broke free of his grasp and stumbled away. Bluebeard reached out for her, but then his eyes closed and he was still. I didn't see that one coming, Puck whispered to Sabrina. Snow was trembling when Charming pulled her to his side. You hate me, he said. I get that. And I would apologize, but I can't. I did all of this, the betrayal, the cruelty joining this wretched hand. I did all to save your life. Charming released her and turned to Granny. Canis has fled. What? Where did he go? Robin told him about Hatchet. Canis was furious and he ran off. He said, Rhoda, he was injured and something inside snapped. I think the wolf is finally in charge. Mom, if the wolf gets to Hatchet before we do, he'll kill him, Uncle Jake said. Granny took Daphne's hand. Do you still have that kazoo? The little girl nodded. It might be our only chance. A caravan of cars raced through the twisting country roads of Fairport Landing. In the first, there was Sabrina, Puck, and Daphne in the back, with Granny, Uncle Jake, and Mariah Rose squeezed into the front. The second was driven by Snow White with Prince Charming in the passenger seat. Little John and his wooden staff took up the back seat. The third car held the rest of the merry men. Uncle Jake pushed the family car to the limit. Driving around the block was more than the old car should have been able to take, but Jake managed to get the vehicle over the speed limit. Small flickers of flame flashed from under the hood. Sabrina tried not to notice. She suspected her uncle and grandmother were doing the same. Next to her, Daphne held the kazoo. She turned it over and over, studying every part of it. Daphne caught her staring and mouthed that she was preparing herself. No one could have a conversation in the noisy car. Soon they found the entrance to Hatchetland. Uncle Jake slid into an empty parking spot and turned off the ignition. Everyone leaped out and gathered together. Do you think we beat him here? Robin asked. Somewhere down the path, Hatchet screamed and there was a terrible roar. I wouldn't bet money on it, Puck said as he freed his sword. Then he turned and raced on the path. Everyone followed until they came to the ancient house. Once there, Sabrina could see the door had been ripped off its hinges and tossed aside. Children, you are to keep your distance from Mr. Canis, Granny said. I came here to fight, Puck complained. Granny ignored him. She turned to Daphne and smiled. Are you ready? Daphne held up the kazoo and nodded. Granny turned to the house and called out to Mr. Canis. There was no response, so she called out to the wolf. A moment later, the hulking creature stomped through the doorway. He dragged a kicking and screaming Hatchet behind him. Well, 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 the wolf said. If it isn't everyone's favorite family, the Grimms. And look, you've brought friends. Good, I'm famished. Let Hatchet go, Granny begged. The wolf laughed. Rhoda, you really do make me laugh. You truly don't understand me. I am a beast, and I must do beastly things. You try to help Canis keep me locked up. But I'm free now, no longer bound by the old man's chains. I'm back in action, and I'm eager to spill some blood. I know that Mr. Canis is still in there, Granny said. The wolf chuckled. You're right, Rhoda. If only you'd come closer, reach out to me, take my hand, maybe you could coax him out. Come on, give it a try, see what happens. Let the man go, Robin Hood shouted. He had an arrow trained on the wolf. Hatchet squealed and begged. That seems to be the end of this video. I'll send more later. Goodbye.